Oh, hey, I see us. I see your desktop.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, we're live.
I found someone new now. I have more room, no more formats to chain me. On the same page, we are effortless, schemaless, living in the future, you and me, made for us, serverless, living in the future of the clouds.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'd like to make sure that you are able to hear my voice. And Aaron, can you say something so that we want to make sure you can hear two voices and no more than two? I don't want to have an echo either.
Right.
So if you can put in a thumbs up, if you can hear both the voices, that'll be great.
Hey, everyone. Great to see everyone on. So, yeah, excited to keep this series going here.
Perfect. I see a lot of thumbs up there, and I think we're good. So let's get started on the workshop. Really exciting, right? To be able to do this. I know we kind of teased this last month, right? When we had quite a few people show up, in the midst of holidays. But
Right.
but I
Right.
realize again, we kind of hit the ground running with the new year. A lot of things to do, but really want to thank everybody, for being here. We have quite a few people who are, on the show, and you're gonna have the usual lot of content, lot of hands-on where you're gonna do Gitpod, and of course we're gonna have some fun too, right? We're gonna do the Mentee. We're gonna have some questions, and we're gonna give out some swag for that as well. Doesn't matter which part of the world you're from, as long as you win the Mentee quiz, right? So with that said, let's proceed because we have a lot of things to cover today.
Yep, that's right.
And we have a lot of people helping us. So it's just two of us on the screen, but this just wouldn't have happened without all these people, and actually a lot more. Have to at least recognize a lot of people who are not even on this on this slide, who have kind of helped us and put together this workshop. They're going to be helping us with the chat. They're going to also be helping with other things as well. So feel free to ask questions on the chat. This stream is actually being done both on YouTube and Twitch. We only respond to YouTube chat. We don't do Twitch chat. And also, if you have any more detailed questions, you can take it on Discord, and you can get all that information. And I'll cover that as well. With that said, let me introduce myself. My name is Raghavan Srinivas, and for whatever reason, people in the world have a tough time pronouncing my name. So I just go by Rags. Rags not to riches, easiest way to remember me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on GitHub, and I'm on Twitter, of course, right? But I also am a mechanical engineer by my original degree was
Great.
in mechanical engineering, but I like to kind of see things in action, because of that. And the closest we can see things in action in software, is really code. So we will look at code today as well. I'm a big fan of distributed systems. I really love to talk to developers. And one of the things I'm really extremely passionate about is what is referred to as the inner loop of development. I talk about Kubernetes and how it has helped. I come from a Cloud Foundry background, but I still think we can do a lot on the inner loop. With that said, Aaron, go ahead.
Well, hi, I'm Aaron. I won't, kind of like Regs, my last name's a little hard to pronounce too. It's Plutz, but I'm just like, yeah, you can just call me Aaron. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. I've heard a million bad pronunciations of it, so I've grown kind of immune to it over the years. But anyway, hi, I'm also a developer advocate. Specifically, I like to advocate for the the SRE, DBRE folks who are out there trying to running or managing their own Cassandra clusters, and they're trying to make them better and better. So I try to help out in that space as much as I can. I've been involved in the Cassandra community for for like a decade now, actually, when I think about it. I actually lead the Stack Overflow Cassandra tag in points. So if you've asked a question out there, odds are I've helped you out. And I've written a couple of books actually on Cassandra and NoSQL in general as well. So yeah, that's a little about me. Happy to be here and to help you all through this journey.
Perfect. This is like we said before, is a series. It's part of a series. We haven't quite figured out how many we're gonna have, right, Aaron? But we know we know we're gonna have at least one or two more, right?
At least, yeah.
And the nice thing about this is, once you complete all the series, you'll get a nice little badge like this, which you can put on LinkedIn, and you get the bragging rights after you get the badge. Of course, there are some requirements for that. Today we'll talk about the homework that we recommend you do, but we're going to grade it only at the end of the workshop. So let me jump right into housekeeping. I already kind of talked a little bit about all of this. It's being streamed both on YouTube and Twitch. We don't really look at the Twitch chat, so please, YouTube chat, there are plenty of people helping us. Questions, if you have more detailed questions, we suggest you take it to Discord. Because there it's not just us, the developer advocacy team, but there is the rest of DataStax who can help you. Maybe even the rest of the Cassandra community who can help. So just take it out there. And for games and quizzes, there is Mentee.com. And there is a code that you can get that you will see in a little bit once I get up to Mentee. We will ask you a few questions to get an idea of the audience we are talking to, because we just want to tailor it to the right audience. So we have an idea of what the audience is going to be, but just want to make sure that we are not completely off, right? We're going to use the same Mentee.com, the same code to do the swag. And some of you who have attended the workshops earlier, you know the drill, but for some of you who are new, welcome, by the way. Just keep an eye on this Mentee.com. There are lots of free resources available. It's a great time to be a developer, right? There are really cool things. One of the first things that, I started when I was coding in Kernighan and Ritchie, programming in C. I don't know if you guys remember. The first program was Hello World, right? And nowadays we are getting measured by time to first Hello World, right? So the moment you can get started, how quickly you can get started, how quickly you can get your hands dirty, how quickly you can roll up your sleeves and start writing code. There are plenty of resources. If you go to Astra, you can get, we'll talk about this, you can get a database that you can pretty much use for production. Gitpod is the IDE that we're going to be using. It's the IDE in the cloud, and we can't talk enough about that. We'll talk about that later. There are resources in Katacoda, there is resources in GitHub. There are academy courses, certifications, you name it. Like I said, golden age for a developer. Okay, with that said, let me move to Mentee. Is that a good time to do Mentee? Anything else you want to add, Aaron?
I would just add, Regs,
Yeah.
that it really is a great time to be a developer, but it's like it's also, in development time, it takes a while to get that development environment set up, and you'll see that we're using Gitpod today to kind of speed up that process. But Regs, it's like when you and I were younger, it's like computers of that era in the 80s, they begged to be programmed. Like I had a Tandy and I would log into that thing and I'd be at a basic prompt, like first thing, you know. And I really I have a special place in my heart for computers of that age. But so yeah, we're gonna do our best to make
No,
it
that's
make it
that's
as
a
easy as
great
we
point
can.
actually,
So
because like I said, when I wrote my time to first hello world, my first hello world in Koenig and Ritchie, it's a lot easier to do that.
mhm,
But today you have to bring a lot of
it
stuff,
was.
and today you'll see in Gitpod there are lots of things that we bring together, right? Make it easier for you. These are kind of the
Right,
details
right.
that you really don't need to worry about. But if you want to take a peek, nothing is secret here. You can look at the
Oh
Gitpod and
no.
how we set things up and all that. So pretty cool. All right. So let's make sure that you guys can see the code, and let's start playing Mentee. Okay. Here's the code. All right. Guys ready? Okay.
And there's a shorthand command there, like a
Yeah,
slash Mentee
back
they can
Mentee.
do,
Yeah.
right, to get
Let's
the
see if
code.
my
Yeah,
Gitpod is
yeah.
working. I mean, my Nightbot. Too many things to talk about. So
Right, right.
let me again. I know we get this all the time. This is the code. 79466896. Looks like the Nightbot is not started. I'd appreciate if somebody from our group can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a big help. Oh, oh, Riggs, the Mentee code is being covered by
Mentee
your
code is
head.
covered by my head. Good. So I will get rid of my head. Good point. Yeah.
Oh, and it looks like I'm in there twice.
Oh, you're there twice. Okay, I'll get rid of that too. Okay, how about that?
Hey, there we go, there we go.
All the fun of getting started. Okay,
Cedric
that's
posted
good.
it.
Let me do this. All right, let me come back. Thank you. Thanks for all the help again. So I'm going to get rid of my head.
Yeah.
It does happen, yeah. All right. So for now, we'll get rid of my heads and then we'll worry about it. All right. So moving on. Okay. Let's see if everybody can join. Let's see how many people have joined. The first question that we typically ask, where in the world are you from? We see some Indian dots, European dots, some UK dots, or Ireland, could it be? Nice. Always very exciting to see these dots pop up, right? I do that. I've done this so many times, but it's still so exciting. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. If you can put it in Mentee, that'll be really appreciated. And the code again there is 79466896. I know there are a few people joined. I'm sure we can do a little bit better. Thank you again for those of you who are, really giving up a little bit of sleep, I guess, to attend the workshop. Perfect. All right, let's keep moving. Have you been to any of our workshops before? Quite a few yeses. Cool. A lot of new folks. Thank you. Welcome. I'd like to see more. All right. Again, for those of you, the 20 of you who've been to our workshops before, you know the drill. Feel free to jump in the chat and help us out. All right. Did you attend the ecom workshop in December 2021? This was the workshop that we were talking about. So 18 people know. There's only one person who attended. And that's kind of what we think. Yeah. So don't worry, don't worry at all, because, we're going to start from scratch pretty much. But if the one person, who's already been here, and those of you who probably have not responded, 2 people now, we can set you up in such a way that you're not going to waste too much time in the early setup. Okay, so this is kind of what we expected as well. Yeah, exactly. Okay, how much experience do you have with Apache Cassandra? Never used it. Quite a few. More than 5 years. One person. Ooh. Is that you, Aaron, who's answering that? Gotcha. This is kind of what we expect, right? I think it's a good mix. Less than a year, quite a few, but never used it before. No worries. Okay, we will set you up with Apache Cassandra with what is referred to as Astra. All right. Next, moving on. What's your experience with NoSQL databases? Never used it. Kind of corresponds to what we saw earlier, right? Yeah. Just trying to figure out if you've used something else as well. Three masters there. Or is it one master? A lot is 3. Okay. Never used it as 36. I have some experience. That's good. That's kind of what we expect. And I think I have one more question, so I think this is in line. Since we're going to be doing Java programming today, primarily Spring Boot, I just want to get an idea of how many people. Oh, that's great! A lot of Java programmers. That is cool. That is nice, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. So we can talk a little bit, dive deep into Spring Boot a little bit. So welcome those of you who have never done Java. Don't worry. We will walk you through. As long as you're open-minded, I think you'll be good. No worries if you're not an expert in Java. And by the way, I wore my Java 1 shirt from long back. Yeah, pretty cool. Okay. Anything else, Aaron, to add? I think this is kind of in lines with what we were expecting, right? Yeah.
No worries on that
Exactly. All right. With that said, let's share your presentation, and I know you want to take it from the architecture side, right? So are we at that point? All right. So give me a second
Yeah, we
so
can
that I
do that.
can make you your screen, and you're good to go.
Right. All right. Hang on. All right. That looks like I'm sharing now. Outstanding. All right. So this is actually part number 2 of the e-commerce series. Again, if you weren't at part number one, no worries at all.
No worries
the,
at
the
all.
code from part one is still there, and we'll walk you through, taking care of the data model and data for part one as well. So no worries at all. But this is part two in, kind of our presentation on how to build out services and data models for common retail e-commerce, commonly known as e-tail use cases, commonly known as e-tail. And the idea is that we want to show how to do this quickly with tools like Java Spring Boot and DataStax Astra DB. Those are the two things that we're really going to focus on today. And you'll see how quickly you can build up by using these tools. So for those of you who have not used a whole lot of NoSQL, maybe you've done a lot of work in the relational world. We thought too. Oh, there's an echo, Rags. Oh, there's an echo, Rags.
Let me try to fix that.
Yeah.
Keep talking so that I can.
Okay. How is that? Is that getting any better?
All right, let me keep talking.
And yeah. Oh yeah, looks like my voice is still looping.
Okay.
Oh, hey, that says better. Somebody said better.
All right, it's gone. Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah, I just don't know. I need to work this out, but when I transition between Mentee and presentation, something seems to happen, but I'll figure that out. Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, going to this slide for those of you. Oh, now it says video and audio not in sync.
Okay. Let's see.
Well, that's strange. Stefano. Okay. Oh, yep. Okay, we're good. You know what? And we've had a request for me to redo that last slide, so why don't I
Please,
do that?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, technical hurdles aside, so this is our part two of our e-commerce series. Of looking at like common, e-commerce retail, commonly known as e-tail, solutions that folks want to see. How you can take our tool set and build out things that are common out there that can help large enterprises build and support e-commerce. I mean, the idea is that we're going to show you how to do that today with really quickly with Java Spring Boot and DataStax Astra DB. Those are the two technologies we're going to focus on today. Now, for those of you who have not used NoSQL, maybe you've worked quite a bit in the relational database world. That's cool. We want to do a quick talk about between ACID and BASE. Two abbreviations that that are common with with each of those databases respectively. So on the relational database side, you have things like atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability, and that's something that's typical of relational databases. Now on the NoSQL side, that you have things that are basically available, soft state, eventual consistency. Oh, do we have our echo back again?
Yeah, that's what I heard. So let me see if I can do something about this. I have set it up.
Oh, Alex says now it's good.
Okay. It may be something about. All right.
Okay. Anyway, so the idea is that when you use a non-relational or a NoSQL database, you're making trade-offs is essentially what it is. It's a system. It's a series of trade-offs that are made. Once you go to a distributed database, like DataStax Astra DB, Um, so eventually, you have to say that things are, in the DataStax Astra world, you'll write you'll write your rows, and you'll have what's called eventual consistency. Whereas that first replica will be written, maybe the second one, but the third you're not going to wait for conversation or confirmation on. It'll come back, and you'll kind of trust that it's made. So there are things over the years that have come up with Apache Cassandra that try to help solve that eventual consistency problem. But ideally, what you have is that we're embracing a base strategy instead of an ACID strategy, because there are other things that are more important to us than having data be immediately consistent. So that's essentially it. Regs, anything to add on that?
No, I think at some point of time, people were like, "Oh, you can't have eventual consistency with acid, right?"
Right.
It's just not, it's kind of mutually exclusive kind of thing, right? But actually, even some of the the typical e-commerce kind of applications, which we're going to talk about today, you can still do with
Yep.
base.
Yep.
You may have to do a little bit more work, but from an application perspective, but that's going to produce a lot of gains in terms of scaling and other aspects that have become more important these days.
So I see a question in the chat around elaborating on real world use cases of base versus acid. Obviously for acid, we can think of lots of ways in which, having acid transactions really helps out. Like when you have, multiple tables that may need to be updated, there are ways that you can encapsulate that in a transaction to make it so that those values are applied atomically. Now, in the NoSQL world, as far as a use case where it's okay not to have that, think about like a personalization or a recommendations use case, where you've got folks who are out there on a website, and they maybe put like Star Wars action figures in their cart, and then they get suggestions for like Star Wars Legos, Star Wars videos, so on and so forth. If all of those options aren't immediately available to show them, that's not really the end of
It's
the
not
world.
the
If you're showing them that's not, if you're showing them one that maybe is a part of the group but isn't a perfect match, that's okay. That's okay. So that's an example where I would argue that base is perfectly acceptable
Yeah.
too.
And in today's days of fashion and all that, right? Probably fashions are going to come back. So maybe you don't want the latest anyway. I'm just kidding.
All right. So a quick chat through what we're going to have for just the architecture of our stack. For the user interface, our team behind us, Chris Wilhite specifically, has done a great job of putting together like a Node.js React type of UI using Tailwind CSS. So it's kind of like if you want to call it plug and play website components. That's a lot of what's gone into this. But we're not going to focus on the UI too much. The backend service layer is actually built out. RESTful endpoints, but it's built out on Spring Boot in Java, and then the backend, of course, goes off of Spring Data repositories, and everything gets stored in DataStax Astra DB. And we'll cover why that's actually a really important part of the stack as well. So, and we'll cover this now. Why Astra DB? I mean, can other databases handle this? Well, I mean, yes and no. But what you have to think about is with the relational database, and I've supported a Fortune 50 website before that's run on a relational database, because in 2005 that was really all we had at the time. And the thing is that scaling, when you're looking at like horizontal scaling for sure, it is almost non-existent. Vertical scaling, adding more RAM, more CPU, more disk is limited. I mean, you can do it. It'll get you through a short patch, but eventually you're going to hit a limit on how much RAM a motherboard can address, and or how many physical CPU sockets you have, or how many drives your server can address. You're eventually going to run into that limit. So obviously, when you're looking at a relational database, you know, even today, with most relational databases have a way to do, you know, like distributed data, so you can add like a primary, a secondary, you know, more replicas. It's more of an add-on rather than a core component, and thus it kind of performs like an add-on, which is you know, not great when you're trying to run, you know, and get and drive you know, a few $1 million worth of sales. It can be problematic. Geographic distribution is also a challenge when you're working with like add-on distribution components like that. And that's an important point. And when, you know, especially when your business may have users on like the East Coast and the West Coast of the United States and in Eastern and Western Europe, you know, it's important to get your data to where your customers are, because you don't want them making a data call halfway around the world. That's not going to be a fun situation for anyone. Now, you could also use like a distributed document store. The thing is that with most document stores, consistency becomes more of a focus, more of a concern. So that stronger consistency is actually going to limit throughput. You know, usually with primary, secondary architecture, what ends up happening is that writes and reads go through a single instance, but you know, what happens from there is that, yeah, you can have options like, you know, allowing reads from the secondary, but that'll only go so far in terms of allowing your throughput to grow. So what ends up happening is that, you know, your database activity, specifically your reads, becomes CPU bound, and that's where things get problematic. You know, one thing that you know, a lot of document stores are big on is, oh, we're schemaless. You don't need to worry about schema with us. You know, that was really great early on, but as time progressed, as data modeling progressed, you know, we started to realize that, you know, schema is actually important. And when you enforce schema, you're actually kind of future-proofing your database. It becomes a lot easier to you know, to work on services and build components out when you have a really good idea of what the schema is. And of course, if you're running your own document store and you have different node types, that can be challenging. You know, so if you're running in a situation where you have heterogeneous node types, so maybe you have like a primary node, maybe you have like a secondary node, maybe you have like a config server or a routing server, you know, it all becomes very, very difficult to manage going forward when you know, when your DevOps or database team takes a look at that. So Cassandra, and specifically Astra DB, solves all these issues just in its inherent architecture. So again, kind of the cool thing about Astra, you know, I just mentioned the you know, that there's no operational overhead. It is a software as a service, so it's all in the cloud. I talked a little about geographic awareness and how that's difficult with some other products. Well, with Astra DB, you get that. You can have your data replicated to multiple geographic areas, and that's very, very easy to do. You're also not bound to a single cloud vendor. You know, Astra DB runs in AWS, Azure, and GCP, so no worries there, and no touch scalability. So when your database reaches a point where it needs more resources, you know, we have some you know, some things behind the scenes that take care of expanding that out for you. All right. Well, with that, Regs, I think we can jump to step number 2 in the README, which is getting everyone an instance of an Astra cluster.
Perfect. All right, let me see. Let me make sure.
Yeah, you want me to
Yeah.
stop sharing?
No, you're fine. I'll take care of it. Mine.
Okay.
All right, so you should be able to see my screen here, and let's get started. The first thing I do, and let me put myself on full screen so that you guys can see better. Essentially, what I do is I start with the GitHub link. Okay, and if for those of you who might be wondering where's the GitHub link, just put a bang or exclamation GitHub, and it will lead you. It'll give you the URL. And all that I do is bring this up, right? And now I'm in business, right? So what I do is I go to this GitHub site, look at the README, which is what you're seeing right here, and like what Aaron said, let's look at step number 2, which is create the Astra DB instance. I know that there are only 2 people or maybe 3, who attended the previous workshop, right? So you may not have created this before. If you have created this before, I'm going to say it right now. You can skip to step C. Okay, don't need to worry about 2A and 2B. But if you haven't, then what I suggest you do is start with this step, where you register for Astra. So the easiest way to register, no credit card required. No, you don't have to put in any complicated code or anything like that. You just have to click on this link, right? I'm going to click on this link, and I'm going to open the link in new window. I'm probably not going to go through this. Okay, but essentially what you have to do is you have to put in your first name, your last name, your email, and, create a password and all that, right? So pretty straightforward, right? So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to say sign in, right? And it's going to ask me for my password, right? And hopefully remember this, right? And what I can do is I can just say sign in, right? I'm not going to worry about this. Okay, it might ask you these questions, okay, which is what is your primary goal in using Astra? Put in whatever is relevant to you, okay? So what is your primary programming language? Really Java, okay, but it can be anything, right? What kind of, I'm really more of a backend engineer because, only when something is broken, people remember me or they think of me, right? Exactly. Yeah, when you get the 4 a.m. call, right? So anyway, are you currently running in a Cassandra workload? Yeah, I'm going to say yes, although, I'm not running any production workloads, right? And we are here to help, right? So you can schedule a time to talk to a technical specialist if you want. Don't hesitate if you need any help. But even after you finish the sign up, you can always do a chat by this live chat feature, right? So once you're here, I've already created. I think with the free account you can only create 5 databases. Okay, so if I try to create a new database, let's see what happens. Actually, I got one more. Maybe it'll tell me at the end, but I'm not going to try that. Okay, so let's leave it like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to create. I think this has changed. I don't remember this as being create serverless database, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so all that you're going to do is you're going to do a create database. Okay, you're going to provide the database name as demos. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron. And this is e-commerce. Yes. Oh, okay. I will. Okay. So let me see why you're not able to. I'll figure that out in a little bit. But just to paraphrase what Aaron said, the database name doesn't really matter. It's the key space name that matters a little bit more. Okay, or it does matter. I mean, everything you can change it. If you can go into the program and change it yourself if you want. But essentially, what's going to happen when you can pick any region you want. Typically we suggest you pick something that's close to you. Google Cloud. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, so I picked the Monk's Corner, okay, or really Ashburn, Virginia, whatever, right? And we're good to go. Okay, so once you hit this, you can create the database, and you will be, essentially it'll create a database for you. Okay, so let's not worry about that. Let's go back. Okay, and let me actually bring that up again. Okay, sorry, I have to go in for the sign in again. But I was going to tell you one important thing which I missed. You want to make sure that the database is active, okay? And you'll see that in a second. Okay, you'll see these different databases, and you'll see some of these are on standby. And what we do this is for efficiency's sake, and also to be able to respond quickly. You can see demos is an active state, fruits is an active state, but everything else is in standby. If you want to, move something from a standby, you just hit connect, and you hit one more, or just say SQL console, and essentially, it'll say resuming your database. Please try again shortly, and it should be up and running in a little bit. Okay. I know a whole lot of information here. But I'd appreciate if you can put a thumbs up once you have this database active. Having the database active is critical, is important. After that, you'll be good to go. Okay. So let's see some thumbs up. Anybody able to create? Anybody having trouble? Did I miss any steps? Aaron, can you talk and see if we can, if people can hear you?
Yeah, I'll try talking again.
Okay.
I don't know if it helps or not, or if I'm audible yet.
All right. So how do you create? Again, just go back to, let me get rid of this. Give me a second. Just follow the steps here. This also has a nice walkthrough, which walks through how to create the database name and the key space name. Okay, so essentially you sign in and then provide the database name. So you do the create database, okay, and you provide the database name. Don't take these names. Just use the appropriate names that we have provided. So which is the database name is demos and the key space name is e-commerce. Okay. All right. Anybody having trouble? Let's see some more thumbs up, please. Of those of you, if it's pending, it's no big deal. It's going to take a little bit of time to get active, but I'd like to see some more thumbs up before we proceed, because this is kind of critical. Pradeep, who's using his mobile, I think it's going to be a little challenging to do this workshop on the mobile. My suggestion is, if you can find a browser on a laptop, I think that might be a lot easier. Okay. Yeah, Shruti says it's pending, which is fine. No big deal. All right. So once you've done this, remember there was a connect and a SQL console. Okay. So let me show that, because I don't think we put the instructions in there. Maybe we should have put that a little bit better. So let me try that again once more. Okay, go back to where you registered. Okay, and you're going to go back again. Okay, this time I'm going to save it just in case I need to come back. All right. And then click on the database, okay, and say connect and SQL console, and you'll be thrown into the SQL console. All right. And you can do something like describe key spaces. Okay, or you can just follow this the instructions that were there. Okay, so let me make sure. Let me open that in another tab so that I can keep these two going. One of the nice things about Gitpod, and you'll see that in a second, is it keeps a reference to your Git repository, so you can use that. Okay. All right. So make sure you get the SQL console, and like I said, if it's in pending, it might take a little bit of time. You might see a message something like this: resuming your database. Please try again shortly. And once you have this, then you're going to open the SQL console on Astra. Okay, and I showed you how to do that. Let me repeat that for those of you who may be trying to find this. You just hit on connect and then SQL console, and you should be able to see this. Can we see a few thumbs up when you see the SQL console? And if you're having trouble, let us know. Okay.
Just curious if people can hear me yet, or if I'm still muted somehow.
I think you should be good. Perfect. Lots of thumbs up.
That's good. That's good. Oh, hey, someone said we hear you. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Right, you brought me
I
back.
I didn't mean to. All right. So what do we think we should do? Proceed?
Yeah, I think we're good. I know what I saw a question in the chat around getting to CQL console.
Okay.
But yeah,
Let me repeat that step again, because that's kind of critical,
Yeah.
right? So what you do is, if you go to the dashboard, okay, so let me go to dashboard. I mean, make it easier here. So let me go to the dashboard. Okay, and you'll see all the databases. If you have created a database for the first time, if you have registered just now, you'll probably only see one. I have one here. I mean, I have 5 here. Click the right database, right? In this case, I have a few. I want to make sure I'm clicking on the database which has the key space of e-commerce. Just verify that it has the key space, and then just hit connect and the SQL console tab. Okay, and it'll bring you to the SQL console. Okay, so, and if you want to do this, just do a describe key spaces. Okay, and you should be able to see e-commerce, or maybe not the first time around. You can always create one. All right, so let's go back and start using e-commerce, and then start creating the different tables. Okay, so one of the nice things to do in all of this is kind of do defensive programming, as it's referred to. So you create a table if it does not exist. You don't want to overwrite something, right? If it's already there and then oops, you're in trouble, right? So what we tend to do is, if it doesn't exist, so just all that I'm going to do is take this, okay, and put it in the SQL console. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so let me do the first step, which is use e-commerce. Okay, and maybe my again, you may want to do this describe tables. Okay, which will show all the tables that you have. Okay, so you can see here that I've already created all of this. Okay, and you know, it doesn't matter if you do this, because you know, only if it exists, or if it doesn't exist, it's going to create new, right? So if it does not exist, then create a new category, create a new table called price, create a new table called product, create a new table called whatever that is, right? Did I jump ahead?
Yeah, you know, I think you went a little bit
Okay.
ahead, but I think we're okay.
Alright.
Yeah, I'll cover the you know, getting the DDL code in there in the data model section. So that'll be coming up shortly.
Okay, didn't mean to steal your thunder, Aaron. So
Oh, no worries.
why don't you get started with the presentation then, and please put in a thumbs up. You know, once you're done creating, you know, the key space and everything is in active state and so on. Okay, so let me give you control. And I don't see you there. All right, you're good to go.
All right.
Excellent.
Excellent. People can still hear me, right? just thought I put that out there and make sure we're okay. Yeah, but
yeah,
thought we'd get a little bit into you know, some of the use cases. Echo. How are we doing on echo? Yes, people can hear you multiple times, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Better. Keep going. Yeah. I think we're good.
Are we okay now?
Yeah.
Oh, seems fine now. Outstanding. So yes, let's dig into some of the use cases. You know, as to what we're going to be building out here. So when you're putting together an e-commerce website, there are a lot of components that go into it. You know, so when, you know, we were going through on you know, which components we were going to focus on, which ones we could run workshops on, you know, the list is very, very long. But in terms of getting going, there's a lot of core components that you actually need. And those core components kind of reveal themselves the more you look at you know, the ones that everyone else is dependent on. So the last session, you know, the one Regs talked about in December, we focused on the product services. Well, today we're going to focus on the cart services. So that's what we're going to look at today. And yeah, with the next sessions, you can see that we have you know, hopefully 2 more coming yet. All right. So today with the shopping cart, you know, we really have 2 services that we're going to be concerned with. So we have like user cart data, or it's almost like metadata, data about the cart itself. And then we have the cart product services, which is really about you know, what is in the cart, and you know, how do we persist, how do we maintain that. So getting into the data models, real quick, a short crash course, if you will, on Cassandra or distributed data modeling, is that we're going to really drive toward this one aspect called denormalization. You know, so that's where we you know, we adjust our tables for performance, and we build tables specifically to suit a query. And sometimes what ends up happening in the non-relational database world is that you end up with one table supporting one query, and you have to remember that that's okay. So the pros of that is, hey, we usually get really, really fast reads, and you have a simple query model too. But the cons, though, is that sometimes, you know, you do that through data duplication, but really that's okay. Disk is cheap, and that's kind of the assumption that you know, distributed data modeling really thrives on. The tricky part, though, is that does involve manual, you know, data integrity enforcement, which can be a little tricky. But a good visual of this is that if we look at the relational world, like if I was going to query employees and I wanted to know what departments they were in, and I had separate tables for employees and departments, from a relational third normal form world, this would be really great. But what this looks like in the Cassandra world is that you'd really build one table to support that query. And that's where you don't have to worry about doing things like joins or setting up foreign keys or anything else that goes into to complicate that query model.
So let me ask you a question, Aaron.
Sure.
Are all joins evil, or is it okay sometimes? Because one of the things that a lot of people within DataStax or really the NoSQL world, kind of like to talk about is you don't let friends do joins, right? So in that context, where is normalization? Where do you draw the line? Sometimes it does it really depend on the use case? How do you kind of because when you normalize,
Yeah.
it's very easy for me. I just follow the steps and it's done,
Yep.
right? Whereas in denormalization, I have to think a little bit, more, right? So any advice there?
well, Rags, there's a saying in the database world, and this actually applies to both relational and NoSQL databases. It is you normalize till it hurts, and you denormalize until it works. And that's really the line that you try to walk with this. Because that's actually kind of a dirty little secret in the relational world that we don't like to talk about, is that, hey, when you denormalize there, it helps too.
True, yeah.
So I would say not all joins are bad, especially if you're in a relational database. To be honest, I try to stick to inner joins as opposed to left joins whenever possible. And you definitely don't want to do what's called a Cartesian join. That can be really, 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 really bad. So I would say joins are good, use case appropriate and in moderation.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, no, that's great, and that kind of leads into a question that Kamlesh is asking on chat. Is it one query for one table, and how do you support CRUD on a table? And we're going to get to that, right? So
We
yeah.
are going to get to that. Yeah, there are ways to there are ways to look at you can provide atomicity still in the Cassandra Astra DB world, and make sure that you have an update that might go to multiple tables. There are ways that you can get it to fail, where if it fails for one table, you fail it for all of them, and then at least then you're not out of sync. So, and someone's asking
Yeah.
about what an inner right
Inner
join.
right to join.
Wow.
The most
Yeah,
inefficient one, maybe.
I tended to like I said, I tend to stick to, in my relational days, stick to inner join, and it'd have to be a really odd case. Well, the thing is though, is that really, if I remember right, the table on I'm going to get this wrong, but the table on the left, I think, is the one that's in your from clause, right? And then you're joining to the other, and then right is really like if you're joining on a table, but you're going back to the one in the from clause. So I think that if you do your SQL right, you shouldn't ever need a right join, but that's just me. Anyway, it's
Yeah, I can never get those left joins and right joins. It's always a challenge. But in general, I
make
think
your
the
head
advice
hurt.
is good. Yeah.
But anyway, so of course, now that we're looking at denormalizing, doing things in Astra DB, I have some tips for large scale Cassandra modeling, of course. First of all, data that's queried together should be stored together. You still want to try and make your data call in one trip and back. Try not, if you can help it, to build data sets from multiple queries, because obviously, we talked a little about joins. In the NoSQL world, that means doing an outside join, which isn't any fun to do either, to be honest. So again, data that needs to be queried together should be stored together. That goes to that whole, one table supports one query kind of an aspect. Use high cardinality keys. You're going to hear me talk about this a lot. And what's high cardinality? High cardinality means there's a lot of possible values. So like a UUID that would have has billions of possible values there. As an example of something that's low cardinality, take a Boolean. You really have only two possible values there, true or false. I mean, you could argue null, but no, it's really true or false. And then, if you were to partition or distribute based on a Boolean, you'd have two partitions, and that would be it. And that wouldn't be, any good at all. So you want, in order to encourage optimal data distribution, you want to make sure you're using high cardinality keys.
Yeah, and
then of
might
course,
be a good idea to kind of hint on some of these might be part of the Mentee quiz, so pay attention. Yeah, so
That's right. That's
all of these are probably going to be in some form or another. So it might help to pay attention, and feel free again, if there are any questions you want to put in chat as well.
All right. So the next point, I would say, no full table scans. Every query in Astra DB and by proxy Cassandra should have a where clause. Because the thing is that if you're doing a full table scan, you can't make any guarantees about which rows are on which node. So essentially, to scan a whole table, it has to go to every node in the cluster, and that gets expensive when we're talking operational time. Additionally, things tend to run better when you keep things small. So think about small column values, small partitions, small result sets. The smaller you can keep things, the happier you're going to be. I like to talk about a cluster I've supported in the past that, it could, even with SSL running on this Cassandra cluster, it could support 250,000 reads a second. And it could do that at a P95 latency of like 3 milliseconds usually. And it was just insanely fast. And the reason we were able to get those kind of speed numbers is because the result set for each of those queries was tiny. I mean, it was like single digits in terms of K bytes in terms of what you'd get back. So the smaller you can keep things, the happier you're going to be. Okay. So in breaking down the data model for shopping carts, we're going to take a conceptual approach here of, hey, how do we think about these things? How do we talk through some of the problems around here? So we think about, well, I'm a user and I'm on a website, and I have a shopping cart, and this cart has things. It has an identifier. It's I could have a name for the cart if we're talking about building out like a shopping list or something like that as well. A cart, of course, is associated with a user, and a cart can be active or a cart could be inactive. And again, that goes back to the shopping list question as well. So, of course, what does a cart do? What's in it? Well, of course, shopping carts contain products, and one shopping cart can have many products, and a product will have things like, it'll have an identifier. It'll have a name, a description, it'll have a price. So this is kind of high level how we think about how these things translate into some of the questions we're going to have to ask this data model. And that, of course, leads into our questions about, hey, what queries are we going to need here? Well, as a user, I need to be able to query my shopping carts, and that means I have like an active cart, or maybe I want to see all of my available carts. Additionally, the user would need to view all products in their cart. They would need to add products to the cart, and of course, they're going to need to be able to remove a product from their cart as well. So again, these are the things to think about when we start, putting code behind how do we make this all work? How do we make this all kind of gel together? So some other things to consider, and this is just my personal experience here. My last job, I supported about 200 Cassandra clusters, and that was across thousands of nodes. And I can tell you that the shopping carts that we supported were under, I wouldn't say constant, but a bot attack was something that was, it wasn't rare. It actually happened more than we'd prefer. And really what would happen is you'd have a Cassandra node that would, kind of max out its resources because you'd have a cart that was experiencing hundreds, sometimes thousands of product ads in a second. And you'd see these carts get really, really big. So, there was a lot of debate that went back and forth in terms of, what is the actual goal? What are the bots trying to do? Most people thought that it was really they were trying to like scrape prices from us so that they can use them elsewhere or compare elsewhere. But again, one thing that kind of narrows that avenue of attack is to have a time to live on your cart data. And that's just because old carts sit around and they're avenues of attack for this kind of thing to happen. Now, that's not to say that a bot's not smart enough to create a new cart, but again, this is about kind of narrowing that attack avenue. So this specific property that you can put on a table is called the default time to live, and it's in a number of seconds. And in this particular case, that 5,184,000 seconds comes out to 60 days. Now, for your business case or retail case, maybe you want your carts to live longer. Maybe your carts are shorter lived. That's okay. You can adjust that as your business requirements dictate. But the thing to remember is that you just don't want them hanging around there forever. Also, I kind of hinted at it with the amount of activity we'd see on a single cart, in that having a rate limiter on the product ad service is a really, really good idea. Because there are ways that you can tell human activity from bot activity in this respect. If there are hundreds of ads happening in a second, I'm pretty sure that's not somebody, with a mouse moving around and navigating your product hierarchy and managing to add hundreds of products in a second. That's more than likely a bot. So finding some way, to limit that to a sane amount, I think is a good approach as well. All right. Getting down to the logical data model, and just to point out that, these models are going to be labeled a little differently, from what you'll see in a typical ER diagram, where a typical ER diagram would point out things like primary keys and foreign keys. Here you can see in our legend that PK is partition key, clustering key is CK. So when we talk about active carts by user, really you'd be keying off of that user ID, and you'd pull back, a lot of that metadata here. All carts by user, if you wanted to see all the carts that user had, it'll pull back a lot of the same data, but you're going to want to add additional clustering keys for uniqueness that'll kind of help out there. And then of course, you're going to want to know how many carts are there, how many products are there in a particular cart. Obviously, you have that cart ID as a partitioning key. But then you can add things like timestamp to make sure that your cart shows the items in the order they're added. And also, if you happen to get two items added at the exact same time, as rare as that is, you have a product ID there that can that can be a tiebreaker. All right. And further refining that down into what the physical data model looks like in terms of what you put into Astra DB. It really comes down to two tables here. Where we have the user cart table. Oh, and somehow my clustering key on cart ID got to be a different color. Oh, how about that? But yeah, and then of course you also have the cart product data. So really, these two tables are what we're going to be focusing on today. So here's our user cart table. Again, we have a user ID with a UUID, and that's our partition key. And just a quick breakdown of the Astra DB Cassandra primary key structure. We have a user. The first one listed is always the partition key. So that's important to remember. And then any of them after that are clustering keys. Now there are ways to add a composite partition key, but we're not going to delve into that today. So then we have things in the cart along with the user ID like cart name and cart ID that again kind of help ensure uniqueness. User email is there, again, just to kind of help tie it to that user. There obviously you'll store the email in other places, but there are times when you'll want that user email, for use in other things, and it helps to have it as a part of that cart data. You'll notice here that user email is defined as static, and that means that it is stored with the partition key. And the easiest way to explain that is just that user email is going to be the same across all the carts. So that way we only store it once, and it's kind of a quick way to associate it back to that cart data. And then of course down here we're enforcing our TTL with that default time to live of 6 months and second.
So
Seconds,
let's say in a
plural.
multi-tenant scenario, what does default time to live do? Does it get rid of the entire table, or does it get rid of the table per tenant, or obviously it's not going to get rid of the entire table, right? So
Yeah, it'll actually do it by
row. Okay.
by row if you want to think about it that way. You can actually have TTLs enforced on specific column values, but in this case it'll just by default, I'm pretty sure it'll just run off of the partition key. That way, when the cart has been there for a 6-month period, it'll check it based on the write time, and then it'll actually write a tombstone over the top of it. So for those of you who have used Cassandra before, it is important to point out that using a TTL does write a tombstone, but again, that's okay. Good question, Regs. All right. So for cart products, again, we're here to solve the cart query. I talked a little bit about how we have this cart ID as the partition key, and then we have our product timestamp to ensure that the products in the cart are listed in the order that we add them, and then a product ID there just for a little extra uniqueness. And we're also enforcing our TTL here as well. And that TTL, it's going to vary a little bit based on the times that the products are added to the cart, but that's okay. All right. Well, Regs, now we can jump to number
Perfect.
3 in the README.
I know I jumped a little bit ahead, but let me make sure I go to step 3. All right. So I'm gonna get rid of your screen, and every time I get rid of your screen, somehow I will lose your audio. So just remind me to
I
bring
know.
you back again. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, so going back to my GitHub link, right? That's kind of what I'm doing. Execute session 1 product data model, right? Go back to your SQL, right? So here's my SQL, and all that I do is
Regs, I see a blank.
And,
oh, there
and,
you go.
and
I
what
see
you're
it.
going to see here
Sorry.
is you're going to cut and paste, the data models, the product data models, the shopping cart data models, and populate the data. I mean, in a real life scenario, you will probably not insert like this. You'll do a bulk data, bulk upload or something like that. And you definitely not do a select star from category or something like that, because we really dissuade that, because what it's doing is probably going to go to every partition and gather it up, which is not a good idea, right? But since we're kind of again in the process of learning, I think it's probably okay. All right. So please give me a thumbs up when you're able to add the data models and populate the data. Again, there is like if you hover over this particular window, you'll see something like this. All that you need to do is copy it. Okay, go to your SQL and paste it. That's it. Okay, you're good to go. Okay, so you can see here, right? I know there have been some questions. There are already some thumbs up coming up. That's great, fantastic. I know there was one question from, I missed that part, but I was going to talk about that. Let's see. Yeah, so somebody was asking, and the suggestion by a community chat was that follow along the README and you'll be good to go. Really, follow along the README and you'll be good to go. And that's kind of what I do as well. Just follow along with the README. So we finished step 4, right? And we're going to get to step 5 and all that in a second, all right? A lot of thumbs up. I think we're good to go. Anybody having any troubles? Trouble? Whatever?
Hey, Riggs, did you ever bring me back for audio?
Not yet.
Just checking.
All right. So now I'm going to give you control. Okay, keep going now. See if it. All right. So, Aaron, all yours now. Aaron, you're good to go. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
good.
Yeah, I hear you. Am I audible? Am I audible?
I think so. Keep going. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Oh yeah, we are seeing a lot of thumbs up. That is definitely a good thing.
I'll get rid of the echo. My apologies again.
Oh yeah. And Alex says there's echo.
Okay. I'll figure this out eventually. It's not rocket science. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, I know. I know Cedric was talking about having me stream, and yeah, after seeing some of the problems that come with it, I'm afraid. I just anyway, moving on. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the RESTful service layer that that goes into sitting on top of our database. So. We have a link here that goes to the Swagger UI, and when when you actually have the backend running, this will be a valid link that you can go and you can kind of look at all of this as well. So what you can see on the user cart service area is that we have 2 services that we have right now, and they're both GET requests. One is about retrieving metadata for the user cart, or user carts, plural, by user ID. So this will bring you back everything. And specifically, if you want to get metadata for, oh yeah, the active cart, the second one is what you're going to have there. So really, it's the difference between, do you want all carts for that user, or you just want the active cart? Now, usually in terms of most site operations, the active cart is the one you're going to care about the most. But they are both there, and you can use whichever one kind of fits the use case. So here is a quick example of a CQL query from that cart table. Oh, actually, you know what? I did this when I only had a single entry in there, and I don't have a where clause, so that's on me for bad CQL there.
Exactly.
Normally, you don't want to.
As long as we
let's
recognize
just
that, again, for the point of illustration, I think it's good. But you definitely don't want to do it in production, especially if you're running a cluster in Apple with lots of nodes and all that. So.
Right. So let's just pretend that I added where user ID equals and then my type 4 UUID pair. So anyway, you can see that data about this cart is that it just has a simple name of a cart from, and then it has a timestamp on it. It has a UUID generated for the cart ID. Email's not specified, but this one is active. It is active of true. So that's definitely one we want to work with there. So cart product is a little more complex here, in that we have 3 RESTful endpoints around being able to do a put to add products to the cart. We have a get so that we can get everything that's in the cart, all the products that we want to see. And then we have a delete endpoint as well, so that we have an easy way to remove a product from the cart. So simple enough, yeah. Likewise, though, it's important to add that the put endpoint actually takes a request object. Excuse me. Actually takes a request object in addition to the query parameters, or the URL parameters, I should say, in that it'll allow you to add any number of quantity for a specific product, and then you can also mention the the product name and description. And by putting that all in here, it actually goes back to our principle about how duplicating data is okay, and this allows you to basically build out your cart for your UI without having to make multiple calls back to the product.
Yeah, and here it shows the Swagger spec with localhost 8080, and this is the nice thing about Gitpod. We have bundled this all for you, and you will see that actually in action today, later. But essentially, what it does is it resolves itself to the to the URL that you get on Gitpod. It's going to use the workspace that you're going to use. So I'm teasing it a little bit, because we're about to get to the Gitpod situation.
All right. So, again, I've erred in the way of not using a clause, but again, I know. Imagine I had where cart ID equals and then my type 4 UUID. And it comes back with these 3 products that are in my cart. So if you remember from last session, for those of you who were here, I built it out based on my own personal collection of DataStax clothing, which I've been putting together for the last decade or so. So I have some stuff that that kind of goes way back there. So in this cart, you can see that I'm purchasing a DataStax vintage 2015 hoodie, my DataStax gray track jacket. Yeah, by the way, those are really cool and super comfy. And then my Apache Cassandra 3.0 contributor T-shirt, which I hold very near and dear. I think I had like 4 patches that made it into that one, but that's okay. Anyway, so this is what you can do with the an example of the cart product endpoint. All right, Rags, I think we're now jumping to step number 6 and kind of putting this all together. And I know too that folks have asked that we maybe show a little bit of the code. So maybe what I'll do while you're walking through showing folks how to get started in Gitpod is bring up some of the code inside of an IDE, and maybe we can walk through a little bit about the
oh, absolutely. I was planning on doing it anyway, but I think I think the
Oh,
point
excellent.
was it said step 6, but that may be wrong. I think it meant step 4 because you don't want to skip step 5 for sure.
Oh,
We want to create the token. So let's start with step 5. Maybe some of you already got ahead of time,
oh,
but we have to create the token to be able to programmatically connect to the database, which is exactly what we're going to do. Remember again in the architecture diagram that Aaron talked about. It's a Spring Boot application that is going to connect to Astra, and essentially there are a number of different platforms, if you will, or entities that are used here. Spring Boot, and then there is Spring Data, which essentially connects to Cassandra. But to be able to programmatically connect, you need a token. Okay, and that's the first thing you're going to do. How do I create a token? Very straightforward, right? Again, all of this in the instruction. You don't need to listen to any of what I'm saying, but it might help. If you just pay a little bit of attention here. So you go to organization settings, go to token management, okay, and pick the database administrator. You can fine tune this a little bit, but just again for the illustration purposes, we take the easy route. We want you to, like I said, time to first hello world. We want you to get up and start it as quickly as possible. Just do the database administrator and then say generate token. Okay, so hit this generate token. But here's the critical part: don't move away from this tab, because if you move away from this tab, this information is all lost. The client ID, the client secret, the token, and all that. You don't need all of them. You don't need the client ID and client secret in this particular workshop, but you will definitely need the token. But in any case, what I would do is I just download this token details. Okay, and basically what it will tell me is, can I store it in an Excel file, or can I store it in a CSV file, or whatever, and just say yes, right? And once it comes up, then you can copy values from there. But by chance you moved away from this tab, no worries, you can always create a new token. Okay, so the best recommendation, and the instructions kind of talk about that as well. Okay, so let's go and look at the instructions, right? And you will see here, go to organization settings, go to token management, pick the role database administrator. There's a walkthrough, and essentially this is what the token page looks like. And our recommendation is to download the values as a CSV file. So we will need these values, but you cannot go back to this window, because if you navigate away from the window, then it's essentially lost. Okay, so for example, if I go back, to another tab, then I've lost it. Okay, so once you've stored your tokens locally, okay, give us a thumbs up, and I will keep proceeding, because it's pretty straightforward. Then the critical part is open your application in Gitpod. Okay, so I'm just going to do an open link in new window. Okay, and basically it'll give me a like it's trying to create a new one, right? And it's fine. Okay, first time it might ask you for your GitHub link. You may have to set up the GitHub, essentially handshake, if you will, right? The credentials and all that. And for the very first time, okay, you will see something like this. This is the IDE in the cloud, okay, the Visual Studio Code in the cloud. It's doing some setup, which is cool, right? And you'll notice here, it kind of looks like a IDE, right? But essentially, it's the IDE in the cloud. Okay, so what I'm doing here, it's set up a whole bunch of stuff, right? And if you look at .env, okay, there is nothing in there. So what we recommend you do is look at this example. Okay, if you just do a open, and all of these instructions are in there. Open. Let me do a clear so that it comes up. Okay, so this part is the Explorer, or the Explorer window. This kind of the editor window, if you will. You can see here README is in there, but you can really edit any of the other files, right? And right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the credentials to be able to connect to this. we have provided a simple file called open, .env.example. And what you're going to do is you're going to copy the .env.example to .env. So you're going to do something like this: cp.env.example to .env. Okay. Or you can do, what you can do is you can cut and paste this. There are a number of different ways of doing this, but all that we need to do is you need to create, basically add these values: the DB ID, the DB region, the DB application token, and the DB key space, which is already pre-populated for you because we're using e-commerce. Of course, if you used a different key space, you would go with that. But again, for the sake of simplicity, it's just easier to go with what you have. Okay. So let me get rid of this workspace and go back to the workspace that I've already opened. Okay, and you can see here, for very briefly, I'll show you my env file. Okay, and you can see that I've populated all the values there. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this token, but essentially, it has the Astra token and all that. And again, if you just walk through the instructions, it'll tell you exactly what to do about that. Okay, so copy the env.example to env, open the env, and paste the region, which is right here. Okay, so if you go back again, now I'll wander away from the tab. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Okay, and now I've lost my token, right? But I've already saved it, so not a big deal, right? And I'm going to go to my database. Okay, and you'll see here there is a region US East 1. Okay, ignore this data center ID. We are not going to use that. Okay, but once you click on this, okay, so it talks about how you can get the region. Okay, and once you click on the key space, right, it'll tell you which. Actually, let's do this way. Demos. Okay, and you can find the appropriate DB ID. Okay, so the DB ID is right here. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to find the DB ID by just going back on the dashboard and looking for the database ID. Okay, so you're going to copy the database ID, which is whatever the 7F, whatever is here. Okay, and I'm going to paste that over there. Okay, and that's exactly what you saw here. Okay, so for example, if I do my grep DB ID, and I'm going to do, don't worry about this command if you're not familiar. Okay, so this will actually, let me do this. So you can see here it has the DB ID in there. Okay, and that is the 7F that you saw before, right? So once you have done this, you have entered the commands, you're ready to run the tests. Okay, so how do I run the tests? Again, very straightforward. You start with the unit test. Okay, go back into this terminal window and run this. So if everything is correct and it's run, okay, so you can just go to backend and run this. Okay, first time around it will download a bunch of Maven files. It'll download jar files. Okay, so I got it wrong. So let me follow the instructions properly. Okay, CD backend, I did that right. So let me do this again, CD backend. I don't know what I missed here. This is the nice part about the instructions, right? So even if I got it wrong. So if the instructions are not working, let's try this anyway. Let me try once more. Test the connectivity. Okay. May have to do this. Let me check that. Maybe that's the. Right, let's try that. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I'm not going to spend too much time on what's going on here, okay? But the illegal state, that is odd, okay.
And that is odd.
So let me not worry too much about that. Let me go to the next connection and see if that's. Let's see if this test works.
Oh, hey, Regs, can
Yeah,
I
sure.
talk?
Yeah. Yes, you
Oh,
are.
I didn't know if I was enabled or not. Just checking. I suppose the good news is that when you look at the chat, there
Okay.
are folks who are saying
So maybe
it works
it's-
for me. So that's
Maybe it's just
that's
my
good.
environment
good.
that's
Yeah,
broken.
yeah.
Okay, so I will take a look at what I might have disabled a token, but I did try it out this morning, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I'll figure that out. Okay, but again, the best part is you just run this, and you should be good. Okay. Okay, so once you've done all this, installing the backend, essentially you're going to do the same thing. Okay, so let's do this. Go back and install the backend. Okay, just follow the instructions again, right? And you're good to go. Okay. Oh, this is the problem. Let's try one more. Right. So let me not spend too much time debugging this.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
starting to get it on mine too, Regs, just to
Perfect.
make sure it works for me here.
All right. So then what you can do is you can get your public URL by just running this command, okay, which is the GP URL, okay, and this is where your application is going to be running once you have it all up and running. Okay, now you'll see a 80 not found because it's not running. Okay, but at some point you will see that this port is going to be open and it's going to be good to go. Okay. And right now you can do this and you will see that failed to connect to the local host. And all that I need to do is use the start command, and we'll hope that it will all work, right? So we have provided a convenient script called, oh, I know what I did wrong, okay, which is I missed a simple command, the source env, okay? So that's the one that I missed. And now I think the test should work. Yeah.
Yep, that's a good call out. Is that when you run the start env shell,
Source
it
command,
actually
yeah,
runs that
yeah.
source command to
So I just figured it out
Yep,
in time.
Yep.
Okay. So everything is gonna work. Everything is gonna connect, right? And you can see that the tests are working fine. You will see what are all the databases in there, and my build is success. So you saw that these are all live, right? And then if I want to run this, all that I do is just do a start. Okay, and maybe I'm not in the right directory now, right? So I go back and just do start, and I'm good to go. Okay, and you'll see that the application is going to come up. Okay, I'm trying to see how we are doing with respect to time. We are doing well. We still have about 20 minutes. And there is your, it should be coming up anytime now. Okay. So let me go back again and take a look at it. Oh, it's right here, right? So there's my, the stuff that Aaron has in his, you know, in his closet, I guess, right? So that's all you really need to do, and you know, there are a couple of things that I really didn't talk about here, okay? Which is like, if you now go and do this curl on the local host, you'll get the information on this, okay? So if I do the curl here, and the best way to do this is just bring up another bash, okay? So just say one more bash, okay? It will take you to another terminal, okay? And do a curl, and now you should see the information that is associated with that particular product. And one of the cool things that you can do is you can also look at the Swagger specification, and we'll see what this means in a second, okay? But how do I look at the Swagger spec? Just you know, if you want to open this, you can open this in two ways. One is you can do the preview mode. Okay, so again, how do I open this in preview mode? I just run this. Okay, and you'll see that it comes up in a preview mode here locally. Okay, so let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this because I don't care about this. And you can see this in preview mode. But if you don't like this in preview mode, you can just hit this open in browser mode. Okay, and all of the instructions again are there. It'll open it in browser. Okay, or you can just use the link here. And you're good to go, okay? So a lot happening there. If you want to get a idea of what kind of APIs are used in the backend, you know, remember what's happening here, right? The backend is providing the APIs, and that is done by Spring Boot and Spring Data, and we'll dive into the code in just a few minutes, okay? But what is happening in the front end, you know, that's the one that, you know, Aaron talked about. The front end uses the back end APIs to be able to get all this information and do the CRUD APIs, the create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so if you remember, or if you go back to your workspace, okay, there are two parts here. One is the back end, then there is of course data, and then there's UI. So if you go to the UI, okay, and this is basically a JavaScript with Tailwind, you know, as one of the platforms that we're using, primarily because, you know, it's just easier to get started, and kind of we have set this all up for you. And what this does is essentially call the APIs, right? And what are those APIs? So to look at what are those APIs, all that we need to do is where is it? Did I miss that?
Oh yeah, in the
right here.
backend directory.
It's right here. So all that I need to do is click on this. Okay, so I'm gonna take this and post it here. Okay.
You know, I made a comment in the first session too with regard to the pricing and product services, in that, you know, in a true like microservice environment in a big enterprise, sometimes you don't know what's calling your services. You know, it could be, especially in the e-commerce world, it could be any number of you know, like digital channels making calls to that. You know, so it's important to have that separation between, you know, like what Regs was saying, what goes on in the UI and what happens on the back end. Specifically here, I mean, yeah, we have cart services. We have ways to group products together, you know, for like a financial transaction. But this could be called from a mobile device. This could be called from a website. This could even be called from a point of sale self-checkout module that somebody walks up to inside a physical store. So again, it follows that same concept of clearly having that separation between like that front end layer, that back end service layer, and then the database as well.
Absolutely. So you can see all the different services here, right? And essentially, Spring is doing all the heavyweight and lifting and all that, and all that I had to do in Spring is just include one. If you look at the pom.xml and just look for Swagger, you should be able to find this yourself. Use this Open API UI or Spring Doc, and essentially the documentation of the Open API and the Swagger, is automatically done for you. But if you want to take a look and dig a little deeper, go into the source backend, right? Main, okay, and Java, right? And then you can look at the e-commerce application.java, right? It essentially all that it does is it starts off this application, right? And now if you look at like the different API controller, API documentation, or if you look at the different objects, right? So let's look at, like, for example, price rest controller. Okay, it has a whole bunch of Swagger in there, and then it has the different request mappings, right? Like /API/v1/prices, and that's exactly what we saw here, right? In the in the Swagger specification, right? So what you can do is take a look at this, and you can take a look at how this maps to the object model that we defined before, okay? And essentially you can see here it has the getter and setter methods, as we call it. Okay, so it sets the product ID, it sets the store ID, and so on. And in the price repository, it has all these different parameters, and you can do the same thing with let's see, product. Let's look at product, right? And this is exactly what the URL that we called, right? So if you look at product Java, it has the product ID, model number, and so on. And if you go and look at the REST controller, right? So essentially what it has these different methods, okay, and CORS or cross object resource something, right? CORS, cross origin, right? Essentially to be able to call it from different IP addresses, right? Which is usually not permitted, but you can override it, since you're making this into an API, REST API that can be called from pretty much anywhere in the world, right? So API/v1/products. So remember I did a curl, right? So let's go back and look at the curl. That's exactly what we did here, /API/v1/products. And then we provided the product and provided the product ID, right? And that's the product/product/product ID, right? And it gave me the product details for that particular ID. Okay, so let's be brave here and let me try this and see if it works. Okay, that's the medium. So you can see here medium, right? And let me try like a tall. I don't think it's there, right? So you get nothing, right? So essentially what is happening is the backend APIs are set up, to make this happen. Spring, basically what it does is it wraps the APIs from Cassandra, or wraps the data and provides it as Spring data, and that Spring data is then presented to the user interface. Aaron talked a lot about separation of concerns, and this is the cool part of this, is that the data is all in Cassandra, but it's kind of conceptualized as an object in Spring, because it's easier in a program to be able to deal with objects rather than as NoSQL data, SQL data, or whatever the case may be. And then that objects are being manipulated by the user interface. So hopefully that kind of gives you a end-to-end vision of how this application has been constructed. And it's good to have this because in the remaining parts you will see that we're going to add a little bit more, like maybe a user profile, maybe even be able to check it out using my credit card at some point, right? So that's the whole idea behind kind of providing all that. You don't have all of that complete at this point today. So like for example, if you click on this, right, and you say add to cart, right? Okay, added to cart, right? And I go back to my cart, cool, and I do a checkout. You're gonna get a error, right? Because we don't have all of this complete. But the idea is that at some point,
Yeah.
this will all be filled in gradually. The idea is to again, kind of open up each of these gradually. Okay, so let's see. I talked a lot. Let's see some thumbs up of how you guys are doing. Even if you get to a point where you're able to open up a Gitpod and be able to play around with it, I think that'll be great. Okay.
Yeah, I see a
Yeah.
thumbs up out
A
there.
lot of
That's-
things
yeah,
coming through.
that's-
So let me get rid of my main monitor,
Oh, couple of them.
and I think Aaron, I know you have a few more slides to present before we get to Mentee, right? So we have, yeah. So I think we're doing
I
well
think
on
so.
time. So
Yeah.
keep going, Aaron.
All right. Really, just to kind of close out and maybe do a little foreshadowing and advertising for the next session. We've taken you through cart and product. Actually, product is still out there. If you want to go and have a look at the last workshop that Regs and I did on this, that one's out there too. But the next session is actually going to be focusing on the user profile. So right now, we're kind of working in terms of, having like a guest checkout sort of a functionality. But next time we're going to show you how to tie this to a user profile, and then have you able to be like logging in, have the site kind of recognize who you are a little bit, and then oh, by the way, you've saved a cart. Well, here's your cart for you, as long as it's within the
Recommendation
last
engines,
60
maybe?
days. Maybe.
Actually, that may be a good one for Mentee. I forgot about that. I was going to do that. What would you like to see? So put it in chat. Put it in
Oh,
chat.
that's
What would you like
yeah.
to see? So we'll take a look at that.
Yeah. I mean, I can do a back here and look at all the subsystems
Yeah.
that we're at least thinking about. But if there's one that's not here that you want to see,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear from you. Okay, let's watch my cool puzzle animation one more time. Woo! All right. Oh, and then that mistake. Come on.
I think you got ahead of yourself.
There we go.
That's fine. Yeah, I love that slide. I love the puzzles because I'm, as a developer, we all like puzzles. I think, right? So. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. So what's next? Hey, I think we've covered most of these. We're looking at
No,
Week
this
four
is the
is
boot
this
camp. I
week.
was gonna talk about this. No big deal. But we just finished a 4-week installment of the boot camp. We called it the Learnavery, and what we mean is January of learning, right? And all of these material is available. So just head over to github.com/datastaxdevs, and you will get a lot of information on this boot camp. This is also pretty useful. I would call it as kind of supplementary material to what you're going to see in the next few weeks, or at least in the next few installments of the e-commerce workshop. Let me take over at this point, Aaron, if you don't mind. Okay. All right.
Sounds good, Regs. Oh, I saw someone in the chat mention product reviews.
That's a
great
fantastic one.
Actually, yeah, I made a note. We'll see if we can build out something around that.
That's a great
good
recommendation. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So where were we? I'm trying to. I think. Okay. So we finished all this. Just a quick run through all of this, just to make sure. Now it's time for Mentee. So again, let's whip up your phones. Be ready. Same code as before, and we're going to do some Mentee now. All right. All right. Let me go with Mentee. Are you guys here? Okay, so we are about to ask you some questions. For those of you who may not have paid attention before, it's 7946-6896. Okay? And let me get rid of my heads because that might make it a little easier. Which means, again, you're going to have some issues with audio, but that's fine. Okay. You guys good to go? All right. I'm going to get rid of you too.
Nope, I'm gone.
All right. Okay. All right. So, Mentee. So we see I have like 34 people. Let's get to 40, please. Can we get to 40? I know there are a lot more people who are listening to the workshop, attending the workshop. Okay, 35. Can we really get to 40? No? All right, I think we should get started. What do you think? Okay. Again, what is Astra DB? Simple question. Answer fast, answer correct. Is it a gateway to the stars? Is it Cassandra as a service in the cloud? Is it an IDE? Is it a local in-memory version of Cassandra? Time's up. And I think we did a pretty good job because most people got this. It's Cassandra as a service in the cloud, right? I don't know if it's a gateway to the stars. I know Cassandra might be, but not Astra DB. But it's really Cassandra, easy to use, database as a service, what we call as kind of the serverless database. Okay. Next question. Let's see the leaderboard. Wow, so close. Gokul is in lead, or was the fastest, and is in lead. So Gokul, I know you completed the exercises too, and you're answering correctly. But again, it's important to answer correctly, but also important to answer in time, and it could be anybody's still. Okay, so moving on. Question 2 of 7. Right? Answer fast to get more points and answer correctly. This is a trick question. Why is a Astra DB a better choice for e-commerce than an RDBMS? Is it because of scalability? Is it because of data distribution? Is it region awareness? Or maybe all of the above? Yeah. So nobody got anything wrong here because we cheated here a little bit, right? All of the answers were correct. Exactly right. We gave you a real softball. All right, moving on. I think this was pretty obvious, the next one. Let's see how the leaderboard is shaping up, because again, it's important to answer fast, right? I don't think too much movement. Oh, we have Rishi jumping up to the top, or pretty much to the top, to the second. But Dhananjay was really fast. Just picked one question, right? One answer, and good to go. So still anybody's game. Question 3 of 7. We still have 4 more to go, okay? Or 5 more to go, I guess. What does TTL stand for? Yeah. Is it transform to Linux? Is it time to live? Is it total tombstones left? Or is it the totally lost? Let me see if I can start my quiz music. I forgot about that. If it's too loud, let me know. All right. I think, quite a few people, maybe 80% of them got it right. So I think we did a good job there, right? Let's check the leaderboard. Oh, give me a second. All right. Leaderboard. Ooh, looks like it's changing, maybe. Gokul was the fastest and still maintains the lead. Awesome, Gokul. Rishi close. Charles very close. Sajal, Arturo, Hemant. Really anybody's game right now. Okay? Yeah. Question 4. Answer fast, but more importantly, answer correctly. What is one disadvantage of normalization? There are lots of advantages, but we are talking disadvantage. And this might be a little tricky, right? Many queries implies joins of tables, inefficient data storage, loss of data integrity, or too many data dependencies. Wow. We kind of managed to confuse the audience, I think. it's definitely not inefficient data storage because I think normalization does a pretty good job of that. Yeah, you don't lose data integrity, right? Data integrity is one of the reasons why you do normalization, right? And too many data dependencies might be worded a little differently, but again, Aaron, maybe you should explain what that means. Too many data dependencies. That's a good question. Yeah, let me see. Perfect. Moving on. Leaderboard. Let's see how the leaderboard is shaping up. Gokul seems to not have answered this. But he could still jump back in because he's still on the board. Rishi is the fastest. Let's see. Arturo was in the top. Hemant, who was at the bottom, he makes all the way to third. So he might make the move to 1. He might make the move to 2. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's still anybody's game because we still have, I think, 3 more, 5, 6, and 7, right? One of the following was not used to connect to Astra. If you had paid attention, you will remember what it was. Was it DBID? Was it application token? Was it database region? Was it Steam ID? Was it key space name? There you go, Steam ID. Enough said. We don't even want to spend too much time. Let's jump straight to the leaderboard and see how the leaderboard is facing. Rishi jumps back, and Rishi said he had a networking issue. Apologies. Or rather, my sympathies. Hopefully, that's resolved itself, and you're back in the game. So, like I said before, anybody can get back at any point of time. Okay, moving on. Question 6. Answer fast, but more importantly, correctly. What does BASE stand for? I think Aaron spent a lot of time here Is it basically available SATA events? SATA. B, always stateful entries. Basically available soft state, eventually consistent. Beavers H soft else. I'll set that up. So basically available software, eventually consistent, was obviously correct. And let's see how the leaderboard shapes up here. Ooh, looks like Rishi is back in. Yeah. Wait. Okay, Hemant, Rishi, and it's still anybody's game. So for all the marbles, let's see what goes on. Last one. Question 7 of 7, last one. Okay. What was or is the previous name of the Open API specification? And we talked about this a little bit. Is it UDI or UDDI? This is giving away my age, or how long I've been doing programming. Corba, is it RMI or is it Swagger? A lot of people got this right. It is Swagger, and you are right. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to bring up the leaderboard, and those who are in the first three, only first three people get, swag. What you're going to do is you're going to take a screenshot. I'll leave it there for a little bit, and send it to gary.harvey@datastax.com. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So, Hemant, congratulations. Rishi and Arturo, what you're going to do is take a screenshot. Hopefully you've taken that already. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to send it to GaryHarvey@datastax.com. Okay. So now I'm going to get back, and hopefully I'm going to have you back, Aaron. Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off, but not quite sure what's going on today. All right. So with that said, let's move on to the few items that we have left. I think we did pretty well on time. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if you are if people are able to listen to you.
Can people hear me?
Okay.
That'd be.
Now I think you're good. Unless there is an echo. If there is an
Okay.
echo, let me know. But I think you're right. We covered a lot of material, but we
did.
managed to kind of squeeze it at almost 2 hours. We're a little bit over, but I think we're good. Like I said, we're not going to do any grading of the homework. We will kind of keep it till the very end. There is no echo, so that's cool. At least finally I got my OBS 101 done. So add your own product to the website, and and essentially this is kind of what you're going to do. You want to talk a little bit about this, Aaron, or we good?
Yeah. So for the last session, Rags and I put a lot of thought on it, and we didn't really come up with what we thought was a good enough solution for homework for last time. So what I thought was that hey, if you could go in and have a look at the CQL that we have for for adding the product data, if you could add your own product, so you'd essentially make an adjustment to the product the category, and then the price tables. And then you can add an image as well. You know, to that UI public images directory. What you can do is once you get that working, find that product and add it to your cart, and then submit a screenshot of your product in the shopping cart. Oh, echo. Hearing some echoes.
I think you're good now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, if you know, you can make entries in those three tables, and you know, then of course add an image. You know, navigate to your product, add it to your cart, and submit a screenshot of your product in the cart, and I think you're okay.
All right. So, a few more slides to get through, and we're almost there. We have a Astra DB build-a-thon, which starts, believe, on 21st February and goes till 28. You know, take a look at that. Appreciate if you can do something. There is a lot of prizes there, so you just go to buildathonhack.com. Okay, take a look at this. I believe there are some, you know, early presentations starting as early as this week. I know we did a lot of chatting. You know, we primarily focused on this workshop, this installment, but we have a very robust community in Discord. You know, more than 18,000 people, and essentially, you know, you can ask questions. You can reach out to some of our product group, product engineers who are very hands-on with respect to Cassandra, Astra, and so on, and you know, you can get some help here as well. And again, you know, YouTube chat is going to go away as soon as the stream ends, but this is the place where you'll get more information. You can also subscribe to our channels. You know, we have a very robust subscription, so feel free, you know, to subscribe to this, and you'll get notifications, you know, of things that you have. With that said, Aaron, you want to add anything?
No, I would just say that, you know, I know that we did a hackathon a while back, and that was actually a lot of fun, and there were some cool things that were created out of that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this one brings.
Perfect. All right. With that said, thank you all very much. Thanks for coming, and see you soon in another workshop.
Oh. All right. Yeah.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe
Thanks,
button.
everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you all later.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.
And you know, when we do that, we're always going to question ourselves. But you know, overall, I think it went really well. So yeah, you too, Rags. You too. All right. Hey, we'll see you, Rags. Thanks a lot. All right. Bye.